without any further ado, we're going to start as we normally do with what are conserved comic books worth and this really sharp Wonder Comics #1. Now, this is Wonder Comics 1 from Neater Publications. There's a Wonder Comics 1 that's a Fox publication as well, right?
Oh, really?
It's really only a few years older than this.
Yep. It became Wonder World.
Right, it did become Wonder World.
Yep.
Yep. Not sure how Neater was able to pick up this name almost immediately thereafter, but there it is.
That's a cool book. I mean, you
great cover, right?
You got a Hitler cover and a Hirohito cover on there.
Yeah, and you're stomping on the flags.
Stomping on the flags.
It's incredible how because it wasn't like a flagship character for such a long time, this book was worth virtually nowhere near what it is for now.
Oh yeah, no,
like really, you could have had it for something. A dance. It was crazy. I mean, I always thought that it should have been higher valued, but because the Black Terror is only so cool.
But
man, the market caught up with it. It's a sweet book.
Well, if you started reading it in the Silver Age, you wouldn't even know who this guy is.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait a minute, is this the Black Terror? Is it?
I mean, I'm just going by the skull and crossbones and the. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not even. It's like
no, I don't think that's the Black Terror.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, so it's not even Black Terror level. I mean, it's a tier beneath Black Terror.
Exactly,
no,
exactly
Black
correct.
Terror, but geez,
he's got the crossbones.
But also
they had multiple Jolly Roger type characters over at Neater.
To be fair, too, though, it was really even when it was more cover-driven market. This book was still undervalued. It was seen as like a lesser example versus some of the other better Hitler covers and better war covers you could get. But as time's gone on, it's been more appreciated.
Yeah, I think it seems to me that this ongoing trend that started maybe with I guess probably a little bit before the pandemic, where PCH books, pre-code horror books, and World War II books really both started accelerating.
The better covers really separated from,
and it's been cover driven, and they've really outpaced any other genres and any other eras during this time. Bronze had a huge surge through the pandemic, but has come way back from that. Pre-code horror and these war cover books have just continued like tanks over Europe.
They're not going to lose value.
They don't seem to be willing to. I have a little bit of analysis of that later, but
good. I want to hear it.
I'm glad of it. I think this is part of our heritage, even if it's sometimes nationalistic and jingoistic and borders on racist. It's a thing. It's a thing that happened. Yeah.
But the thing is these books, if you're going to put your value into a book, for long term or just save money, Golden Age books are always going to hold their value. The Silver Age will fluctuate. Anything newer than that's also going to be fluid, but these Golden Age books, they're just solid.
Grim Reaper,
yeah, it's the Grim Reaper. Thank you, Jason.
Grim Reaper. Larry, to your point, no one's really going out and reading the Grim Reaper. So, I mean, it's got that cool cover, but it's not going to really have the nostalgia effect. Like
it really won't. I mean, there's just nothing there to.
Neater Publications. Well, we'll get into it a little bit, but Neater Publications employed Schomburg for their wartime covers and later covers too, under the name Zila, the airbrushed sci-fi covers. This was contemporaneous with Schomburg doing these a little bit different style, but similar wartime covers for Timely. And I've been able to sneak a few of these under the radar, Jason. I've sort of sniped like 3 of them that I thought were below market price. But yeah, sometimes they just go nuts because people love Schomburg. People love these war covers. So let's get
There are
into it.
still some affordable one though. Larry just showed us one he got.
I'm gonna hold it up for you right now.
All right, here we go. Let's
Nice.
feature.
Sweet.
So
Oh yeah.
this real life, it's got the Australian guys on there. It's number 15. If you look down here, get my finger, there's a Schomburg right there.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a Schomburg cover. I'm embarrassed to say I paid $57 for this.
Yeah.
Don't be embarrassed.
Oh, if you can, no, that's awesome.
I stole it. I stole this.
It's a Beethoven cover too.
Yeah. It's got he's a superhero, you know.
I love Beethoven.
That's definitely a way into this market, Jason. The neater books that don't have spandex folks on the cover, like the ones that have the Newsboy Brigade type characters with a bunch of kids. You can get some great wartime covers, Schomburgs, and those are very affordable, similar to the captains there. So Wonder Comics 1, March of 44, Hitler and Hirohito, as we mentioned. It's not a bondage cover. It is a Schomburg cover. Median grade on this one, 4.5. Only 34 universal, 42 all grades, 7 restored, just the one conserved, just the one we're going to talk about today. You'll note, interestingly, 0 universal copies in 6.0. So we have really no exact
comparisons.
comp, but we actually have something I think worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
Just April 3rd of this year, a 6.5 sold for $6,600 on Heritage. So that's almost perfect. Like in this range, we can linearly, regress the price, and we know that basically our book is worth $6,000 in Universal, if a Universal one existed, which it doesn't. I actually did the exact linear regression, so it's $6,000, I think like $92, something like that. So that's the number I'm going to use for fair market value for Universal, and we're going to get into this book. By the way,
it's a good looking book.
This 6.5 is beautiful too, huh?
Oh yeah, there's no question.
You can see why somebody ponied up $6,600 for this.
Yeah, I get
it. Here's our book. I think it presents more or less like the 6.5.
I
Presents
think really a little more, honestly.
Yeah.
He's a nice specimen.
White page quality. Can you imagine white page quality? Also, notice the grade date is 07.
No,
I'm sorry,
it's
2021.
2021.
Yeah. Conservation includes tear sealed to cover, cover and interior reinforced. Moderate creasing to cover, light staining to cover. So we'll go zoom in as we normally do.
I see the tear right at the staple.
You see the tear at the staple. I'm sure that was reinforced.
Can I say, I'm sorry. The first thing I noticed is that Hitler just has no mouth underneath his mustache. And it just looks funny. Like his face just looks, a bit cartoonish, but in a
course,
like he's pissed. He's tied up. I get it.
I mean, I guess it is a bondage cover. I pulled that from somewhere. Not bondage in the way that we normally think of it, but
yeah, that's not how I think about it.
Hitler and Hirohito.
Hitler and Hirohito are tied up.
Yeah.
Looks like a little damage at that. This is a single staple book, right? Yep. This is a wartime single staple. So you see a tear at the top of the staple. You see just on the left upper here, little minor tear there as well. You do see some creasing. Back cover, other than looking a little bit off white.
You can see that last photo. You can see the damage near the staple hole that was repaired.
Yeah.
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. Little discoloration around it.
Yeah.
These single staple books, that's like such a prevalent. My headline 8, it's one of those things where that's what caused the cover to become detached, or the damage kind of was always regulated.
Yeah.
So it is it's a common thing to see, to know that a lot of these books will top out at like a 6.5, so
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Nevertheless,
I like it though. I like it. It's overall, I mean, the eye appeal is so significant.
Yeah.
Your eye just goes to one little tear. It's not like there's a piece missing or
no,
something.
it
It's more of
presents
an
beautifully.
eyesore.
I mean, a little bit of damage on the bottom right corner, same on the bottom left, but it presents really beautifully. So Universal is, call it 6,100 if you want to. What do you think? This just has the cover reinforced, right?
It's a good looking
Like a little
book.
tear seal. Yeah.
Yeah, the tear seal. Well, it was sold by Metropolis, so
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I plucked it from their archive.
yeah, I'm trying to think what Vinny would sell that for.
Well, it was an auction. I'll say this. Yeah.
Oh, it was an auction. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that they have a lot of buyers for this kind of stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was a very healthy price.
I'm just gonna go bottom third and say 2,000.
$2,000. All right.
Okay. I'm gonna go top end. I'm gonna go like 39.
39.
No. You know what? I'll say 36. I'll keep it 36.
36.
Yeah.
Just
Okay,
a little over
everybody
half.
else is chiming in now. I got 3,800,
38 from Ben,
2,200.
22 from AG.
Hmm.
Jason's at 32.10. We have any other guessers here? The professor's at 2,300. Did anybody look at the title to today's episode? Don Carter's at 3,500.
Is this
JC's
one of
at
those times where Paul's like,
2,900?
the answer was right there? So unless you're a dummy,
Yeah, that's
you
your
should know what it
hint.
was.
You didn't actually have to cheat to do
Can
well
I
on
change
this
my
one.
answer, sir?
You want to go to 3,801? FEE is at 42, honey. Welcome to the show, by the way. I'm not sure I've seen you before. Glad to have you here.
Oh, can I just before I forget?
Do it.
So, thanks.
Just started watching the show recently. Dropped off books with Phantom Restoration. All right.
Oh, all right.
Cool.
Yeah, cool books.
Blue Garland.
Thanks for stopping in and tuning in.
Thank you for
And
keeping
for stopping in here, and
Thank you for keeping
Absolutely,
Phil
yeah.
busy.
yes.
All right. Well, we
Let's
got
get to that
we got a
reveal.
JK vote, so I think we should reveal.
Lay it on us.
Boom.
Wow, I should have gone closer to my first guess.
Look at that.
Well, as usual, I am way off.
But you can see why. Look at this cover.
It's a good looking
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, I got it.
This is the kind of material that's in demand, and people are paying up for it. And if it presents well, they're not really that concerned with the conserved grade, especially because, again, this is a rare book. Where are you going to get another one? You pass this one up, right? 30
I mean,
Universal, 1 conserved.
You
know
might
what it is?
a
You know what I think it
decade or
is?
two.
The rubric for this, because like the way I was thinking about it was a lot of people looking at the conserved book and then theorizing what it might be universal, and then kind of using that as a jumping off point. And then so I was like, all right, so if this is a detached cover, all intents and purposes, let's say it could tap out at a 4, it's beautiful. Otherwise, it's going to be around that 4,000, but also it's probably going to, maybe it's not necessarily per point the same amount. So it's a little bit less, but then I should have given it a bump for the eye appeal. I just didn't think of a $1,500 bump for but that could be the thing. I don't know this book intimately, and maybe people are like, the reds, this is, it could be like the Fiction House books where people see those and they view better color registration as like a significant pro for the books that they're looking for. And that could just
absolutely. This is a stunner. It's a stunner. I'm not surprised. 89% of Universal, fair market
That's
value.
great. That's great.
crazy.
That makes me happy.
Right?
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pick the right book, you do the right work on it, pays off, which is nice. So, interestingly, this same book sold May 2021. So peak
Oh, that's during COVID.
pandemic, like mania. It sold for $4,560. So that's less than 3 years ago. It's a absolute return of just under 20%, and it's a 4.6% annualized return on this book. And that's buying it at the peak of the market during the mania. All other comic books that you had bought at that time, nearly all other comic books that you had bought at that time are worth less today. Some a lot less. Some are worth a third or even, good gravy, first appearance of Miles Morales, like,
wow.
the
Jeez.
Jervik cover is worth 10 or 15% now of what it was worth that day. So the fact that you got 4.6% annualized return. Now, granted, I'm not taking into account seller's fees, that sort of stuff. That might chew this away.
Yeah.
But if you had held it and that's what it's worth, that is higher than the 10-year treasury bond right now. So, which is considered to be the gold standard of investing the world over. So you got a better return on a 10-year bond, and you got to enjoy this beautiful book in the interim. I would say can't beat that.
Yeah.
Got a couple of questions in the comments. Rick Gomez.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about the subject matter? Does that affect the price? Yes, it does, actually.
Yeah.
Basically looking at this cover, it's got some factors you want. It's a wartime book. It is a single staple book, but you have Hitler on the cover. That's always a big one. Hirohito, not so much, but if you have a Hitler cover, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And now you have the Nazi symbol. That's a big deal. The Rising Sun flag. You've got the American Army soldiers in a Jeep. You've got the American attack airplane going on. You got the war bond stamp. So on the cover, looking at it, yes. Now internally, the story, not necessarily. In fact, I would say probably very little does it affect the price. It's really the cover artist and how well it presents itself with all those factors in there.
Yeah. And I would say, Jason always makes me laugh out loud almost every episode.
Bondage.
I
don't consider that bondage,
The
guys.
Jeep has headlights.
Sorry.
It's a headlight cover because
It's a headlight cover.
The other thing here is the rarity, right?
Yeah.
The rarity is a big deal on this book. If you want one, where are you going to get another one? If you pass this one up, right?
Can I make a point too? One thing,
Please.
because I heard someone talking about how like why would anyone want to actively collect a Hitler cover? They're like that's collecting like Charles Manson memorabilia or collecting. They're like it's sick. It's sick. And just to put a different perspective on that for some people, right? I think that it's a nuanced topic. But people might be surprised to learn, like, I know quite a few collectors who have Jewish heritage who collect Hitler covers specifically. And I think part of the psychology behind it is these are like war trophies. These are, as an Americans now, these are our like, it's a moment in time, but it's also from the perspective of this is like anti-Nazi, anti-Japanese propaganda, like this is no different than the soldiers who came back that brought guns and helmets from soldiers they killed. In a way, it's a piece of history. So you have to understand from that perspective.
I think that's a very good perspective.
Yeah. I mean, there may be some people collecting it for the kind of quote unquote wrong reasons, but I think the majority of people that I know collecting this stuff, they're definitely fascinated by the history, glad that the Allies prevailed, etc.
People like a villain. He was the scariest villain. He was real. I mean, like Doctor Doom is menacing, and the Green Goblin is menacing, and Lex Luthor is menacing, and the Joker is menacing.
Yeah, but Hitler,
like the devil,
that
man.
That's real life. I mean,
Yeah,
that's real life, pure real life evil right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's that. I think that's a great example of doing it correctly, conserving a book, and actually probably creating a lot of equity and presenting it in a way that preserves the heritage and excites collectors. So in that vein, I have a new segment to unveil, try out, and it's a project.
Okay.
So we talked, everybody knows I'm into these more fun covers with the Spectre and Dr. Fate in particular.
You're a Spectre guy. We know.
Founding members of the JSA. And here, let's do this real quick. Here's the book that we're going to be talking about today. It's still in the slab. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what we might do to this and whether or not we could create some equity. So we'll go through why we might be interested in the book, what I paid for it, because your entry price is important to whether or not you can create any equity, right? If you pay too much, you're already sort of behind the 8 ball. And then we'll go through some scenarios and people can play along and say what they think we ought to do.
Okay.
So, More Fun 66. This is April 1941. So even earlier than the last cover we just looked at. This is pre-war. This is the penultimate Spectre cover. So Spectre has 14 covers in More Fun. This is number 13 of the 14. Funny enough, he doesn't get an origin until that last one. That's actually his origin is on his last cover. He is in More Fun through issue 101, I believe, maybe 110, when Superboy takes over and basically they make room for Superboy by kicking the Spectre out. We talked about Bernard Bailey covers. He's the ultimate cover artist for the Spectre. It's got, there's 2 big books, the first appearance of the Spectre and then the first appearance of Dr. Fate, which has the Spectre cover. And then there's 2 really phenomenal Bernard Bailey covers that actually get classic cover designation from CGC. These are all expensive books. I would love to have a collection of the Spectre covers from More Fun. Actually, I'd like the Spectre and the Dr. Fate covers. I like them both. So I have one of the big ones already in that I have the first appearance of the Spectre. And so I'm doing okay.
Jeez.
Median grade on this book, so 27 Universal. So this is like half, more or less, of the numbers of copies of Action Comics 1. But the median grade is a 6.5. That tells me there's more raws of this book sitting around than there are Action 1. I mean, practically every copy of Action 1 is slabbed now. We know there are 1 or 2 raws, but the rest are all slabbed. This book, probably not so. There's probably more raw copies. But even so, this is the Spectre has his penultimate cover before World War II even starts. I don't know if people really, it's like wrap your brain around how early pre-war this is and how early days the Spectre was. 27 in Universal, 12 restored, 0 qualified, 0 conserved. Turns out there are actually 2 copies 6.0 restored. This is not my copy. This is the copy that sold before mine. It sold June 25th, 2024 for $2,160. And it is creamed off white. It is restored C1. Now, importantly, this one is not color touched. It has glue.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking at.
And
Yeah.
mine actually has color touch and a piece added.
Spine
But they're both
split
C1.
seal cover.
Larry, do you want
Yes.
to tell people that although the label says spine split seal to cover, what is
Yes.
there a CGC is good, but what is there at least a possibility that actually is once they
Is it-
open the book?
Is it possibly a conserved book? Yes, it is, because I don't know when it was graded, but this particular book, looking at what those notes right there, if that is the only thing that's on it, because it doesn't say it was glued, it just says spine split sealed to cover, which is their label for doing a tear seal on a cover, on the spine. So I've done several of these, and that is the same label I get back, but not in purple. So I think it has to be how well was it done. It is a C1.
Yeah.
So if it's C, it means basically when we look at things like this, we see a C. It's kind of like amateurish. It depends on how they did it. If it looks like crap, well,
I was thinking in the terms of if it happened to be glue, maybe it wasn't necessarily just on a cover. It might be something where you see the cover attached to or kind of glued to the first wrap too. Although usually there is a different notation for that. I feel like
I have. It will actually say cover glued or small amount of glue on spine, which is a friggin' lie. They don't know what small is.
So this is not my book. I'm just putting it up for comparison. So a lot of speculation there. I don't know what the status of this book is, but the reason I wanted to put it up is because this was my benchmark for my entry price for my book. So my thinking here is this is C1 and it's creamed off white and it's $2,200, let's call it. And this is the book I acquired. Also C1, off-white pages, but also C1, but let's get into, presents really well, right?
It really does.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful book.
It presents beautifully. Small amount of glue on cover, which I do actually believe is small amount. I'll show you that later. Restoration includes small amount of color touch on cover. That, Captain Larry, might be deceptive, as you've said. I will show you that too. And pieces added to cover. It indicates here in the grader notes, tracing full center of front cover. And I'll tell you what that is, and then I'll show you in a moment. Some kid took a pencil and traced out the Spectre's face and helmet. You can barely see it. You need to look at it in raking or incident light to see it, but it is there.
Could it be pressed out?
So yeah, I'm sure it could be. It's the sort of thing that it really didn't ding the grade much. And
I love defects like that.
You wouldn't want to put a lot of energy, I don't think, into erasing it, right?
Yeah. That's the best.
Light spine stress lines to cover. I'll show you those. Choose left top of back cover. I'm not even sure they go all the way through the cover. I'll show you those too. Staple detached bottom of front cover. I also have good pics of that. So we'll walk through. First, we're going to walk through the defects that are not restored, and then we'll walk through the restoration, and then we can talk about where we might be able to create equity with this book or whether or not we should just leave it be.
Well, I see the color touch immediately.
Do you?
Yeah, at the staple.
At the staple.
Yeah, that would say that's pieces added with color touch. And just above it, just underneath the Spectre name. I'm sorry, guys. I have my display up on a 42-inch screen, watching our show, so I get a good view of it.
Oh. I was like,
I'm
damn.
not actually sure if you're right.
Yeah, mine's like
Yeah.
that. You don't think so? You got it right in front of you.
I'll show you the color touch I found. It's possible that there's some there too, but
Yeah,
I'll
because
show you
I'm
the
just
color touch that I
looking
found.
at the right around the staple. There's
Larry, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think
there's a
that's actually
change in-
just a little tear.
Yeah.
I think
You know
it's
where the
I-
staple penetrated?
yeah, of course, but there's color
doesn't-
touch.
You want
I
to know
can
what
s-
it is? One.
I think
one
it's just a
thing-
little dirty there.
In my experience with color touch and other people that have done color touch,
Mhm.
it's something that it's so easy to have the color be put on, and when it dries, it's just a little bit darker.
Mhm.
That's a very common thing that you see, which is it's really just to show how difficult it is for people to master getting
Color.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
because
the
it
color
because it dries a different color than it
So-
goes on
Yeah,
wet.
so
I'll show
Larry,
you that.
Yeah.
I can understand how your eye would go to that immediately and see that, but that also
Well,
just to be fair, that could be a mark of just a kind of indent almost at the spine there, and just shows
Yeah.
some like.
Well,
spine-
being-
That's what I
that-
think it is, guys. I looked at this with a loop. I didn't see anything there, but let me show you what I did find, and then we can speculate further here.
Okay.
Here's the bottom half of the book.
Oh yeah, I see. Now there, down at that staple, that looks suspect because
That
it
one
looks-
is
there
suspect.
would be,
Well,
That
there would be
staple
that
is actually
vertical
blown
crease.
out too.
Yeah. there would be a vertical crease there, and all of a sudden there's just some color
then
break,
it
but
just
not color
stops.
break.
Well,
Yeah.
the color's wrong too. So
Yeah.
Small, runs along entire spine,
yes, I agree, Jason. You're right.
more or
Runs
less.
the entire
More or
spine.
less. All right, so there's your view of the front. Here's your view of the back. And then I'll show you magnification images.
There's almost never color touch on the back cover.
Yeah.
You know, we could
People
have
just don't
coordinated
care.
this. We could be we could have cracked out our Baby Ruth candy bars right now and been enjoying a nice, sweet, delicious, rich, and dextrose.
Man, if only I had some dextrose
We ruined
right
it. We
now.
ruined it. We should have done
Yeah.
it.
So I don't know how well it shows up, but
See
I
what
don't
you're
know.
talking about
Can
now.
people see my cursor?
No.
No. Okay. Well, imagine outlined the cowl of the specter here around his face, his chin, around the top of his head, and then just down to his collar.
Well, I see the
A
pencil
kid,
marks.
yeah, a kid took a pencil and just traced around there. And it wasn't a super sharp pencil. It must have been kind of, a dull, kind of rounded off pencil because it made an impression, but
Yeah.
doesn't even break color anywhere. What you're seeing there is the shininess from the graphite.
Yep.
So not so bad. So that's one of the defects. These are the chew marks they mentioned.
Oh,
This
I
is
see. Okay.
upper left corner. You can see there's like kind of an abrasion here. And
Bug chews.
yeah,
It's almost
probably.
surface, very surface level. When you think of chews, you normally think of like a feathering across the cover in multiple pages. So this is best case, really.
It really is. I don't think it's all the way through except on the very edge in a tiny spot there. Maybe silverfish eat paper this way, eating it from the surface down.
Yeah.
But at any rate, that's not so bad. That's, when you saw that we're talking about the upper left corner right here.
Yeah, you can't even see it there. Another.
At arm's
Very
length, it's not even visible.
Yeah.
So not so bad. Staple detached bottom of front cover. Here you can see where that bottom staple
Yeah.
has been blown out. Now all the paper's there, but the staple's presumably behind it, right? So that you can see sort of the indentation where the staple ought to be, but it's not visible.
Yeah.
So the
And then you see
paper
more of that color touch. That like
here,
that
you can see it. So
orange. It's much more apparent.
we'll shift into the color touch analysis, and I'll re-show you this picture with slightly different context in a moment. But here is the bottom right corner, and this is the piece added to cover. So this bottom right corner looks obviously very suspect, And if you look
The
at it
bottom
under
of the
blue
back.
light, my camera didn't capture it very well, but under blue light, it really looked dramatically different than the rest of the back cover. Just that I think my camera tried to normalize it. So
That's what the digital cameras.
Yeah.
It's really
It was a-
hard.
It's,
So you
it's a
can't see
chip
it.
at the bottom of the spine at the back cover is where this is.
Yes, there was basically a chip missing, and somebody
I see.
used pieces to infill, and
Gotcha.
presumably this is where the glue is
Yeah, probably
for that infill.
smeared on the inside cover. I've seen this.
Yeah.
I've seen that done great.
Now, this is the only piece that I found that looked like piece infill to me. Could be more.
It could be that bottom staple too. That
Could
would
be.
the most other likely.
We're going to look at that in greater detail. So
Oh, there's
color
definitely
touch.
Yeah,
Now
that's
you can see exactly what we're talking about. So this is that left edge. So this is the spine coming down from the logo from the trade dress. The yellow there is the bottom of the trade dress. This black with the green line is actually the Spectre's cape. And you can see that the black has been color touched. You can see the gloss is different. And you can see basically the whole spine was abraded and it was color touched all the way down. So the black, you can see there's a gloss difference. By the time you go below the black is this purple. You can see they didn't do a very good color match on the purple. It is a different color on that swath running down the spine.
This amateur color touch is not watching this video right now, hearing you say these negative things about the work. They slaved over getting these. This is.
I'll go ahead and say your work is crap.
Yeah.
I think the work is beautiful.
Well,
nevertheless, it's not a very good color match.
Subjective. I think this is excellent amateur work, right? You know.
Yeah.
it is amateur hour.
And then as you go down the side of the book, you get to, I have 5 total pictures running from the bottom of the trade dress to the bottom of Bernard Bailey's signature. You can see also the orange from the tops of the buildings here on the right of these 3 images. It's not a very good color match with the orange either. And then below the orange, you see black. And that was clearly color touched, possibly some glue. And this is where we get back to that staple area, Phil. And I think what happened is the paper is glued and then it's color touched over with black.
Yeah.
And then the last image I have here, if you look at the very bottom of it, that's the little box where Bernard Bailey put his signature. That's the top of his signature box. And above it, you see some of this orange that's, again, sort of poorly color matched. And then the purple right above it, also sort of poorly color matched. So that is, as far as I can tell, and I went over the whole cover with a loop. That's the color touch. I'm not saying there isn't any in that yellow trade dress, Captain Larry. I didn't see it, though.
I'm still going with my original.
Yeah.
It looks like color touch to me.
There's quite a bit along the entire spine. I would be surprised if it wasn't.
I would be shocked if there wasn't, because the area around that staple is not pulled at all. It's like it's just been.
But
so what I just showed you was, actually, we'll go back one.
Yeah, if you were able to see that.
This area here,
on the
right?
back
So we saw some black in here, black in the cape, and then this purple right below the cape. And then the purple below the cape, then the orange from the building, the black around the staple, the orange from the top of the next building, the purple going down the windows of that building, and then the orange above the signature box.
You know, once you scale out, and this is something that I'll do very frequently when I have a book disassembled and I'm looking, really up close. And then I put the book back together, and then a lot of the stuff right on the edge of the spine, you don't see as much. And what I'm trying to get at is, interesting how sometimes looking at those photos like we did can be a bit misleading when you really pan back out. And then if you were to remove it and you look, sometimes it really, like, you're like, wow, when you really focus and look up, it looks like a lot, but it really only encompasses.
No, yeah, I was showing you that
Yeah.
under extreme magnification, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
The
Dr.
book
Paul,
presents
just pick
great.
it up, give it a good smack against the desk in front of you, and let's just take it out of the slab while
Let's
we're
do
talking.
it, baby. That would be for no equity. Not ready to do that. Okay, so here are my thoughts. So let's imagine we just wanted to do restoration removal and we wanted to put this in a universal slab. We got a lot of color touch to do, color touch removal, I should say. One thing we don't know exactly what material was used for that color touch. Are those acrylics and they'll scrape off pretty easily? Are those some kind of inks or something that penetrated, heaven forbid, like a felt marker that is on the inside of the cover? We don't really know. I think you would have to consider worst case scenario. What if you had to basically excise a thin strip all, from the trade dress down? I'm going to assume for the moment Captain Larry's not correct about the yellow because I looked at it pretty closely. I didn't see anything. So I'm assuming we have to do basically half, maybe even a little more than half of the spine has to have a thin strip excised to remove the color touch.
Okay.
There's also at the back bottom a piece infill and glue around that. There's probably glue around that bottom staple hole because that paper looks kind of restored, even though I think it is the original paper. So you've got glue removal. Those probably have to be minimally, the piece infill has to be excised. You may be able to leave some glue residue if it's not serving a purpose anymore.
It sounds like what you're saying, though, is there's a good chance the cover might have to become detached. If
That's at least detached on the lower half.
I think you're going to have at least half a split spine.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
that
my take, right?
Yeah, if you're going to have to excise that color, because let's just assume, because we haven't opened it up to look inside the cover yet, that it penetrates all the way through. That you have to work on that assumption.
Right.
So if that's the case, you're looking about half the spine being detached. If you want to remove that corner, that infill piece, it depends on the area, but looking at the area, it's at least an inch, from what I could tell.
Oh, I think it was misleading because of the magnification. It's
how big would you estimate?
Maybe like a pinky finger size.
It's not even that big, guys. It's actually, that was extreme. Here, I can cover the entire, here, I'll show you.
Yeah, go full screen here. All right.
I'm covering the entire.
Oh.
It's
okay.
That was just extreme.
All
it's right there.
Disregard it. Yeah, the magnification made it look huge.
Yeah.
So, okay, if that's the case, that can come off. You can live without that. But the rest of it,
Oops.
Yep, there you are. Yeah, the rest, I think the one half split, 50% split spine is a killer. The infill is not that big of a hit compared to the split spine. I don't know. I think you're going to lose equity in it. That's my personal opinion on it, because I think you're going to come down.
Let's do it this way. What do you think the grade is?
With all this,
the grade is if we just excise all the restoration with the scalpel?
2.5 at the best. It's probably a 2.
I mean, I could see a 2.5 to a 3. I think a 3
with the missing material from the split spine.
I think
we're not resplitting the spine. We're going to remove paper from that spine.
Let's say worst case. Okay, so that's why 2.5. I think still 2.5 to 3 is reasonable because the defect is along the edge of the spine, so it's not like there is a thing about defects that affect eye appeal more and they affect the technical grade more. Just like defects on the front cover are counted more than defects on the back cover because it's being looked at in the front
Correct.
cover, even though it doesn't seem fair and it really isn't. It's how a lot of grades go through. So I can see a 2.5 to a 3. Also, especially because that point you just stressed about that piece of the back cover being magnified, then you start to, again, that color touch we see that is there, even if it's along the whole line, it's no different than an accentuated spine split that's there. So let's say the cover is still attached and there's spine splitting, even by one staple it's still attached.
Yeah.
There's pretty much overall eye appeal on the whole rest of the book than
Here, Larry, you can see that tiny little suspect.
Yeah,
thing on the
I would
bottom
just take
right.
I would just take that right off and leave it alone.
Yeah, we're just going to cut it right out. Yep.
Yeah.
And
But I'm concerned about your spine.
I'm where Phil is. I
You think about
think
2.5.
I was
3?
thinking 2.5. I had the exact same range, 2 to 3.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say 2.5 for me.
It will still have really great eye appeal. It'll have.
You're being safe. That's really the best way to do
Yeah,
it.
that's fine. I'm not.
Well, because anything above, because if you say, oh yeah, I'm expecting it to come back as a 3, and it comes back as 2.5 or a 2, that's crushing blow. But I do always play it safe. Now, let's just say Captain Larry's right about that top statement. Now what?
Now you're at a 2, probably.
Yeah. Now you're at a 2.
Yeah. As long as the spine isn't completely split.
Yeah. So at 2, universal fair market value is only probably about $750 a point. So at 2, you're looking at $1,500. At 2.5, probably $2,250, and at a 3.0, probably around $3,000.
So
did the math right? I didn't do the math right.
Well, it's going to be a coin toss. Now that $1,700, that include your taxes and everything?
Yeah, that was
That was out the door.
with the buyer's premium, didn't include the shipping. So there's shipping on that.
So what do we call it, 1,800?
Yeah.
Okay.
I tend to agree with you. I think it's a crapshoot in terms of equity. It's probably a break-even situation if all we did is restoration removal. We may get lucky, and we could make $500, maybe $750 on it.
But you have to regrade it, and it's going to
there's
have
costs
to be
associated with it. There's
gonna
risks
be
associated with it and time. Yeah,
it's going to be a high value tier. So you got to factor all that cost in for.
One of the things that it does have going for it, though, is that it's not a common book. So as we just showed from that Wonder Comic 1, it's possible that you end up putting some conservation work into it, and then it actually it's not necessarily just a break-even point.
That's scenario 2.
No.
You know what? I had changed the text. So this should read restoration removal conserved plan.
Wow.
So if we went a conservation route, we would still do the color touch removal. We'd do the glue removal, piece removal, but we would then repair everything with conservation techniques. So Japanese paper, wheat paste. We would no longer have that blown out staple on the bottom, and we could repair the entire spine and deacidify as we go. I think now we're talking potentially a much higher grade book. I have a number in my mind, but I want to hear from you guys before I say it. What do you think the potential is conserved in terms of the ultimate grade you could receive if you did the restoration removal, but then you conserved the book?
Well, the only thing, let's go back to the color touch. we know we're going to have to excise that. We're making the assumption that the color goes all the way through the book. So let's just say we're going to take out an eighth of an inch strip out of that spine. So we're going to have to fill that in. You can do it with Japanese paper, as said, but it's going to be a coin toss on whether it becomes fill or structural. Leaf casting would be probably a better choice to fill the spine, but that's going to be up to you. I know you've been practicing. I don't know. I would probably excise that color and go with the leaf cast personally. Now that said, that'll repair your spine. I still think you're looking at, with it repaired, with the color touch removed, everything else, you're probably looking at about a conserved 4.5.
I was gonna say conserved 5, maybe 5 tops.
And I do go conservative when I grade the books. So
It's
I
funny.
only say that because I think that if you're already going to leaf cast, you could probably leaf cast that chew on the top of the back cover, which is counted as a defect here. So then,
I would do that. Yeah.
let's say that was casted here under the restore grade, and then that would get the restore grade to a 6.5. I think then if you were to deduct the color loss, but with all the paper that's then been introduced by leaf casting, I think a 6.5 going down to a 5.5 for that color loss seems fair because the whole rest of the book is so nice. A 5.5 seems, especially because I've seen books, I feel like, with a large piece from the front cover missing with a lot of color, and they've got 3 5s, I feel like. So a 5.5 seems fair. I think that's
Yeah.
I
There is a
I
golden
think-
age bump too.
But
I-
ultimately, it comes down to really how much of a strip of that color is, because otherwise I
Sure.
have to be more errors camp, because it's going to be once you zoom back out and then you look at the overall eye appeal, not just the technical parts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the meat of it's going to be once you crack it open, let's just see how much color touch is there and did it penetrate. If it didn't penetrate, I think you're in much better shape, of course.
Absolutely.
That's work to just do.
For what it's worth, Commandant VHS is at 5.0 max. I was once again splitting the two of you exactly. Like my base case is 5. I thought it could be as bad as a 4.5. And I thought maybe you get lucky at 5.5. But my base case is a 5 on this. Again, with the unknowns, the caveats of we don't know.
There's too many unknowns until you crack it open.
As I'm looking at it, the color touch kind of looks caked on. So to me, it looks like paint. It looks like acrylic over top. But
Just depends on how porous it was on the backside.
yeah,
And so many things have been used for color touch, which is why when people whenever I have this conversation with people, I'm like, there's no way to know until you inspect it. There's not like, oh, color touch. Oh, that means they use this, so it's going to look like this. It's like it can be anything.
So
I've seen some weird stuff.
let's do the equity estimate again. I'm taking the number 500 per point for a conserved book, which I think is pretty reasonable. And if we get to 4, then we're at
$2,000.
$2,000. Not bad. We get to 4.5, we're at 2,500. We get to 5, we're at $3,000, and we're doing very well. We're like $1,000 up, even with costs.
So what are you gonna do, Dr. Paul?
I don't know.
Tell us.
Should we take a vote?
Tell us.
What do you guys think we should do?
Well, I
that I left it, I never crack things for no value, right? Like I'm not going to crack this until I'm ready to get working on it. You never
I think
know.
it
The way
presents
it is now,
beautifully.
I could flip it. If heaven forbid I die tomorrow, my kids can just sell this without any trouble. Whereas if it's raw, restored, what are they going to do with that, right? So I never crack things for no value, just like you never crack packs in Magic the Gathering for no value. But
nerd.
I don't know if you guys, I'm like a triple nerd. I'm also like big into the equity markets, right? I don't know if you guys watch the stock market closely or not, but Hasbro had their quarterly report. I think just Friday, but if not Friday, it was Thursday. They crushed because Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons are doing so well. Like those were the two segments.
Really?
Yeah, those were the two segments that
Pokemon cards are doing
they
nutty
beat
too. So
estimates.
it
Yeah.
makes sense that Magic is another trading card.
They were
that's
basically
secured.
in line with everything else. Yeah.
Wow, that's
And, you know,
awesome.
Magic has a big online gaming element too. But anyway.
Yeah.
Silver
Very
Spidey,
cool.
you missed quite a bit. You're going to have to watch the rerun.
Three demerits for being late. Three
Yeah.
demerits.
So what do y'all think? What would you do if this was your book? Let us know. I think cracking it and having a look and then deciding if I want to have it reslabbed. It's not that expensive to reslab, especially the restored book.
That's
I can
exactly
make the
how I
argument.
feel.
You know, actually, as a restored book, I can make the argument that it's under 1,600, and not even pay that much to have it reslabbed. But yeah, I have a fair number of books like this, and I would love to hear what people think of this segment, whether or not they thought it was fun, whether or not we should do more segments like this. I know Larry buys books from time to time, specifically as projects. I know Phil does as well. So we could make this a recurring segment if people are interested, or we could go back to showing work, you know, that's already been done. But I think this is a sort of fun way to switch
I
it
think
up.
this is
have a little
great
fun.
segment. And you know, one thing I just thought of right now, I think in addition to showing books that we already have, it could also be interesting to look at a restored book that's about to hammer, and we could be like, "Hey, what do we think this is going to go for?" Because
That's a good idea.
to it, and then what do we think the chances are that this might turn back up? And you know,
Yeah, because Paul and I do that behind the scenes, and I think that would be fun to
Exactly.
share with everybody.
we would just have to be selective because, sorry everyone, but I mean, both of these guys I know have excellent taste in books, and they're buying books for their own collection. So we can't gas up stuff we're going to go after. You know, not all of it. There's certainly.
Let me put it this way:
books.
you won't see Paul and I talking about stuff that we're going to go after. It won't appear on the segment ever.
But we can. You know, I mean, I can already see the writing on the wall. We can be talking about like a Batman one that we think.
Oh yeah, no, there are tons of great books that
I
are
think that's
just,
a great idea.
we, you know, Larry and I have to focus. We don't have infinite resources, and we have to focus. So there's so many books we think are cool and are great books that we're just not personally chasing because, you know, there's only so much money in the account, especially now.
I think that it is. It's also. I mean, it's in tandem. It's both things. Showing a book you already have, Paul, and what you paid for it is a great way to show how you felt comfortable paying for a book because you might have thought, you know, something can be done. In the same way where we're looking at books coming up, it can help other people look at books in a different perspective.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Well, it's like one
KG here.
You might also make the argument that I got that book at a great price, and that I'd be better off trying to sell it for $2,900 and, you know, putting it out there, either consigning it somewhere or whatever, and seeing if I can't get a little bit more than the one before this one sold for, and then taking those funds and turning them into a different book. Like I could see that argument too, right?
That's well, it's like I just picked up a Fantastic 450. Okay, it was a 2.0. The owner had put, and I'd never seen this before, surgical tape.
Oh yeah.
And put the surgical, it's that white nasty stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They glued it.
It's actually like athletic tape.
It's like athletic tape. But they glued is on the interior. The front half went on the first half of the cover. The other one went on the first wrap.
Wow.
Oh boy.
You know, my perfect nightmare scenario. So that's what I've been working on like today before the show. And it's just, it's horrible stuff. Why are you putting this kind of tape on your books, people?
You know, there's a possibility that's actually the old actual rubber adhesive. That it's
I
not
I I
acrylamide.
got it off. I had to use Bestine to do it,
Hmm.
and it made a horrendous mess.
Hmm.
Um, but I've got
It's
that cleaned up, and now I'm having some troubles with the because I'm gonna do the wheat paste and Japanese paper on the spine, and I started doing that. I'm gonna have to I had to step back and redo it because it just really it did something to the paper. The adhesive got into the paper, and it's
Mhm.
just it. And my
I think
my
that's
wheat
actually
my
rubber, literal
yeah,
rubber.
my
That's
my
like the
wheat paste
original
yeah,
adhesive.
my wheat paste wouldn't stick to it, and when I
Mhm.
separated everything, it just made this mess, so I gotta step back and do it all over again.
Yeah,
But I'm documenting it for for you guys that wanna see it on the channel.
the newer tapes, circa early '60s. It's acrylamide adhesive, and it's not technically soluble in Bestine. The Bestine just kind of swells it, and we're familiar with scraping that adhesive off after we remove the carrier. The older adhesives are literally, I believe, butyl rubber, and that's
I
why
th
they
I think
become
that's the
brittle
case.
and crystallized, and they actually penetrate into the paper. Now, the good thing is they are solubilized by the Bestine completely, but the bad thing is they typically have actually penetrated into the paper and then started
Hard
to
time damage.
crystallize.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I don't know why this guy did this too, because once I got it off of there, the paper in that first wrap underneath it, it was bright, like it just came off the newsstand, and all the rest of the page was brown. Yeah, it was just like,
Wow.
okay, yeah, so this
Yeah.
was put on a long time ago.
Yeah, and it's also, like I said, it's a different adhesive. That's a
Yeah,
that's a rubber adhesive. That's
but
why.
that's
Rough.
pro yeah.
Fun
Yeah,
though. Good project.
yeah, yeah, I picked it up, it was a good project, I like challenging projects, so
Absolutely. Well, that's all I have for the folks.
cool.
Hopefully everyone enjoyed that. I'm glad that you were able to join us, Larry. Hopefully
Too.
your daughter
I gotta
finds a way to excel on her exam. I'm sure she will.
Well, hopefully Grubhub is delivering a new cable to her right now, and fingers crossed her computer will charge up and the computer is not broken. But anyway, guys, next week, like I said earlier, I will be in Germany. It is my 60th birthday on Thursday.
Ooh.
Dang.
Actually,
I know I'm old.
early happy birthday.
Thank you.
I think we had somebody in here with a birthday.
Well, Rick Morgan and I share a birthday, so it'll be Rick Morgan's
Is it
birthday as well.
literal actual birthday?
Yeah, he and I are
Okay.
both May 1st.
Oh wow.
I'll
Um,
throw happy birthday to Sales Voice on the chat
Oh
too.
yeah, sales boy.
that's whose birthday it was. Welcome, sales boy. How are you? We gave you a shout out at the beginning of the show.
Larry, you don't look a day over. I mean,
80? No,
Isn't
yes,
he
I
look
know.
good?
I was gonna say, hey, I'm not gonna pull a Shelby and tell you, some.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's my
Shelby, if you're
shit.
watching. I was like, you're a bully. That was not nice.
Yeah, that was brutal, man. That is Shelby. That's expected.
Was
Thank
that
you.
from the show that I wasn't here?
Yeah, Shelby gave me
The
a gut
mom
punch
comment was
on my
pretty cool.
age. Well, I can't even remember what he said. It was funny though,
Wow.
and I know he said it in humor. So,
Yeah.
but yes, I will
Wow.
be 60 years old. I'll be officially a senior citizen. So I'll get the
That's
early
fun.
bird special at Denny's and all that.
Cheap coffee everywhere you go.
Exactly. So.
I looked up the list recently of all the places. There's some places that will give you a discount starting at the age of 50, actually, a senior citizen discount.
Yeah, I did. I mentally I can't wrap myself around that because I started looking at it as an airline pilot. It wasn't that long ago. Airline pilots had to retire at 60.
Mm,
I am not ready to retire next week. I still got a lot of flying years left in me. So
yeah. Well, so we're going to see you on your birthday?
well, my birthday's on Thursday,
Thursday. Oh, so,
May 1st.
well, I hope you have a
So
wonderful birthday,
Well,
and
happy
we will
birthday.
thank you.
we'll see you when you are a sextagenarian.
Yes, you will. Yeah, I'll have to, I'll have to ask Mama if I could broadcast from the basement, and then I probably can't come back to bed. But we'll see.
Collecting Chaos, thanks for joining. You'll have to watch the rerun. We did shout you out and thank you for sponsoring this episode at the beginning. So I'll leave ads off for the next hour if you want to watch it right now. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Couple new names. Rick Gomez, hello. Unbothered Kitty, thanks for joining. Kat, I know you had a long day driving. And everybody, have a great week. Until next time, take care of one another.
All right. See you guys. Thanks for the happy birthday wish.